A day to remember for the rest of your lives.
There's a great promise for all of you.
The Pro Football Hall of Fame and Extreme Networks present the Heart of a Hall of Famer program. With nearly 100 Hall of Famers participating, we have reached 48 states around this country, sharing the message that football is more than a game and can teach Americans how to huddle up during a time when we need to be united.
It's time for America to take a real deep dive. Not at no one else, but at yourself individually. If you want to change America, don't brush your teeth with your head down. Look at who you are and be the example. Be the example.
An opportunity to meet and learn from one of the greatest football players of all time. But more than that, the chance to see that their Hall of Fame life wasn't given to them. Single-parent homes, drug-infested neighborhoods, and poverty.
I grew up in a neighborhood that was considered one of the worst in America, and the household I grew up in was one of the worst in that neighborhood. By the time I was 20 years old, I knew at least 30 friends or family members who had lost their lives. Football became like a second parent to me. It taught me the things that my father wasn't there to teach me, and that my mother, as a struggling, single-parent woman, just didn't know to teach me.
But they learn how to live a life of character before pursuing their football careers. Today, you will learn you can do the same that they once did. Making good decisions can lead to a prosperous life both on and off the field. Your game for life has already begun. It's your decision whether or not you want to be a successful student, son, daughter, brother, or sister.
Every one of you can have a Hall of Fame life, whether or not you play football. You can be as great as you want to be. The Hall of Fame is all about integrity, character, and excellence. You have the opportunity to represent yourself that way. You determine your character.
Welcome to a once-in-a-lifetime program, the Heart of a Hall of Famer.
Every great team had a group of guys that led you one way or another. With every great running back, tailback, wide receiver, there's a great line that did things to get them there. With every great linebacker, there's a D-line that protects them to get them to where they need to be. There's a cornerback that plays man-to-man to make sure that that defensive end can get to the sack. So there's all little nuances of the game that has to be celebrated as a group thing and not necessarily just the individual. Honor those that have come before you, have laid their line out for you to benefit from. Now it's your job to make sure it continues. And then you learn patience. I mean, patience is the greatest virtue you can have. You have to wait on certain things to happen, and other things you can't wait too long, but you still look at it, let it unfold, and then make a smart decision.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the great Hall of Famer, Will Shields! Today's program is hosted by Kenny Rhoda, currently the host of the Kenny and JT Show on 1480 WHBC Radio in Canton. Kenny is also the voice of the Cleveland Monsters as their ringside reporter, voted Cleveland Talk Show Host of the Year numerous times, and one of the top 100 radio personalities in Cleveland history. Kenny is also a member of the Baldwin Wallace University Radio Hall of Fame. Please welcome today's host, Kenny Rhoda.
Thank you very much. Welcome to Heart of a Hall of Famer, featuring Will Shields from the Hall of Fame class of 2015. During today's program, you're going to have the opportunity to listen to, talk to, yes, you're going to have that opportunity, and learn from a Pro Football Hall of Famer as to what it takes to achieve success both on and off the field. We're going to focus on and discuss a lot of the Hall of Fame values. You see them listed right over there on that banner. Those are commitment, respect, integrity, courage, and excellence. And today is extra special for us because today's program we feature a salute to service. theme because as we see what's going on in our country and around the world, we want to thank all the men and women of the armed services that protect us and give us the freedom to enjoy days like this and to be able to come to the Pro Football Hall of Fame and do what we do. We mentioned courage as one of the Hall of Fame values. The men and women of our armed services have the utmost courage. So how about a nice round of applause for all the men and women of our armed services today? I want to welcome the schools that are here with us and the students from those schools. Minerva High School, where's Minerva High School at today? Good to see you all, welcome. Hope you enjoy your day here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Horizon Science Academy, where are those students at? Hello all, welcome once again. Canton City Middle Schools, where's our group of the middle schools? There they are, and some over here, good to see you. And Green High School, where are the Bulldogs at? They're up front, good to see you, welcome to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. You're going to have a chance, like I said, to ask Will Shields questions. You ever talked to a Hall of Famer before, one-on-one? Probably not. This is your opportunity. All we ask you to do is speak loud, speak clearly, state your name, the school you represent, and then go ahead with your question. We're also going to have questions for Will via social media on Twitter. If we have people out there that are watching on Facebook Live or following on Twitter, if you have a question, use the hashtag HOFvalues on Twitter. And if you're asking a question via Facebook, make sure you give us your name, the school you're at, what state you're in, and then go ahead with your question. So we're going to get started right now, and Will, I'm going to get started with our first question. With those Hall of Fame values over there, commitment, integrity, courage, respect, excellence, is there one that maybe stood out the most for you during your playing days in Kansas City as an offensive lineman?
Well, for me, I think it's more the commitment piece. You know, as being an offensive lineman, you're committed more to the team, but also to your group. You work together as a unit, and you sort of have to commit yourself to each other. And I think that's something that we had to grow into, to be able to trust each other of what you can and can't do, but it's a commitment to the overall goal in mind. And that's what your goal is. And every year your goal was, of course, at that point to win a Super Bowl and to get to the next level as far as what your team could do. And I think that's one thing about it that's very important. And it leads to the other pieces as it built into it. The integrity piece builds in to the trust piece for each of you doing what you're supposed to do. And as us, we're of course a unit. So we can't perform what we could do by ourselves. I mean, we can't throw the ball, catch the ball, and everything else, but we can protect those and get them to the next level. And that's sort of what our job was, is to be able to make them better by our performances.
I didn't ask you this the last session, and it's on the top of my mind, and then we'll get to the students' questions. But it's something that always comes up when we do these Heart of a Hall of Famers, adversity. We all face it at some point in our life, whether we're an athlete or not, in school, at our jobs and that. What type of adversity did you face either growing up or while you were in the NFL, and how were you able to overcome?
Well, it depends on what era you go through. I think adversity at the beginning was more or less trying to figure out where you wanted to go, how you wanted to fit. How are you going to get to the next level? That was the biggest adversity for me to start with, because I had a dream of playing professional football, but never had a plan on how to get there. That was the hardest thing about it, of how do I get to the next level? You know, you're playing in high school, you're trying to figure out, okay, what can I do to get there? I had a lore book that you write in what your dreams are and what you're going to do, and it said, hey, what are you going to be doing 4 years from now? And of course, you know, being that brash kid I was at that point, I put in playing in the NFL. And so it was an assumption or a love that I wanted to do, but I really didn't have a game plan on how to get there. So the adversity piece was trying to get through high school to get to the next level to qualify. And to me, that was a big issue for me, trying to qualify to get into college. We found out that I was interested in certain schools and got an opportunity at those schools, but the qualification piece was something that was hard for me, the big test, being able to take them and feel comfortable with them. And so from that point, it took me basically 3 different tries before I actually got the composite score to qualify for college. And at that point, I sort of made that rule of thumb that, hey, I don't ever want to be in that position again. But that was the beginning of one little piece of adversity of trying to get into college to get the opportunity to play at the next level.
All right, let's get some questions from our students in the back. Step on up and, again, state your name, nice and clear and loud, the school you represent, and then go ahead with your question.
My name is Lainey. I go to Minerva High School. Whether it is football, the military, or just life, we always have teammates. What advice do you have for being a good teammate?
You know, I think as far as being a good teammate, you have to have the commitment piece, and I think that's hard to do, to give of yourself for someone else to do better. To be able to say, as a group, how can we come together and do something that's unique? And I think it comes back to roles, too. Understanding your role when you're in a team situation and being able to, as a coach, express that to you if you are in that situation. To be able to say, hey, this is your role for this year, but you might grow into another role next year if we can get to that point, or even next week, because somebody could get injured or change in different things. And so to me, being that integral part also comes through the integral part of being accountable for your day-to-day. And that makes a big difference of making sure that you're accountable every day and you're making a difference in someone else's life, regardless if you're a teammate on a team or actually just somebody that changes somebody's outlook on, you know, today I'm having a bad day. How do I actually make their day better? And the next day I'm hoping that if I have a bad day, somebody else can come down and do it. So it's not necessarily just a teammate as far as on a team itself. It's just being a good person in life.
Thank you for your question. Let's get our next student with their question for Hall of Famer Will Shields.
My name is Damian Daly. I am from Minerva High School. My question is, your mother used to work at the Haggar Factory, the same company that makes the Hall of Fame gold jackets. What does that mean to you?
You know, it's interesting to think about that. My mom, there's a Haggar Factory, which is the clothing company that makes our jackets. Just a little history of that is that there is one in Lawton, Oklahoma, and of course they've closed it since then. But my mom used to work there, and she used to be a presser. So basically, every pair of pants and everything that came off of the line that was made by that company, she had a part of the process of it. But then to be able to know that it's the same company that makes the gold jackets was sort of unique within itself. To say that there is sort of a full circle lineage that comes back through that, is sort of like thinking about it. And since my mom is not with us, it's sort of like, to me, a simple statement of her being able to say that she actually gave the jacket to me more than Haggar's did. But it's the simple fact that knowing that we still have that connection from beginning to end.
Thank you for that question. More questions for Will Shields, and then we'll get some social media questions in as well. Don't hesitate. It's not every day you get to talk to a Pro Football Hall of Famer.
My name is Shamar Worley. I go to Horizon Science Academy, Denison Middle School. What was your biggest struggle in the NFL?
My biggest struggle in the NFL to start with was basically understanding the speed. The speed is so much different than going from college to the next level of trying to understand all the little nuances of, because there's guys that have been in there for a while and they understand little things that they can do to manipulate what you do as far as when you're playing. But the speed itself was one of the biggest issues that I had trying to figure out, okay, how do I get to this place or that place before he did? And it's called getting to your technique faster than theirs. And once I was able to slow that down, it actually helped me become a better player.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Before we get to our next student, here's our first social media question. The Kansas City Chiefs have a big matchup Monday night against the Rams. What is that atmosphere like in a game of that magnitude? Two of the highest scoring offenses and maybe two of the best teams in the league meeting during the regular season.
Well, first of all, it's Monday night. And that is the biggest thing ever because it's the only game in town. And as a player, you're thinking, this is my time to showcase. This is my chance to go out and prove what I can do. And everybody has to watch me because I'm the only game on. And so you sort of have to get your mindset set for that. Plus, it's a playoff type game because you are two of the top teams playing right now, offensively and defensively. And you got to figure out who's going to face who and who's going to play well. It's going to be electric. And I think the thing of it is a little different. I wish it was in Arrowhead because Arrowhead would be a whole different kind of game for us because it'll be a loud, rowdy crowd to get everybody ready to go and play, and you can feel the emotion going through. And I think that's what we expect. We expect a shootout, guys to put up a lot of points, and it might come down to a point of whoever has the ball last actually wins the game.
Let's hope so. It'd be fun to watch. So let's get more of our students up here with questions for Will Shields.
Hi, I'm Colin Summerday from Green High School, and my question is, how important were your coaches towards your career?
You know, my coaches were very influential as far as my career goes. It started in high school. Our coaches came up with a philosophy. I grew up in Lawton, Oklahoma, and basically there's a lot of Indian reservations in Oklahoma. And so our coach took a saying, which is part of a Sioux word. It's called Hantayo, and it means clear the way. And he used that as our mantra for us to clear the way for people for the future. So basically everything we do is ground setting, and it sort of set the tone with us as far as what we did as far as a community and guys. Within that, we considered ourselves what we call the home of champions. There was a year that we actually had won almost every championship that could be won, and he sort of brought that back to us and says there's a lineage there, there's a growth there, and that you guys should be champions just like others that came before you. Hence the Hantayo piece of it. And so we bought into it. We believed it. We were part of that group. And that was one of the coaches that affected my life and basically set the tone for everything else that we do. By using that mantra on a day-to-day basis, what do you do to affect somebody else's life? What do you do to change their life? Are you the most positive influence around that everyone else sees? And to me, that was one thing that the coach set the standard for, and it made us follow suit. And so every day we strive to be as good as we can be, but also to bring someone else along.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Go ahead, young man, with your question for Will Shields.
I'm Tajon McCall. I go to Lehman Middle School, and I was going to ask, your father served in the U.S. Army. Can you talk about what sacrifices he made and what that selfless services taught you?
Yeah, well, my dad was in the Army. Basically, we're stationed in Fort Sill, which is where we was in Lawton. And, you know, my dad did 2 tours while we were growing up as kids. And doing his 2 tours over in Germany, basically he let us stay as a family at home in Lawton because the first tour, my brother and sister were about to graduate, and he didn't want to uproot them while they were getting ready to graduate. And then the second piece was when I was getting ready to graduate. And so he gave us an opportunity to stay put and sort of set the groundwork of what we wanted to be from that point forward. And I think that was a big sacrifice for him to actually have to go off by himself and do things in the military while we were there at home. Because, you know, we're one of those families where, you know, dad's disciplinary piece that kept us in line, that kept us out of trouble, that protected us. And so for him to give that up was very big. It was huge for us to actually have that support, even from afar, but also the disciplinary piece of him saying, look, I'm trusting you guys to get done what you need to get done so that you can have an opportunity to better yourself.
Thank you for that question. Another one coming via Facebook. This is from Jason. He asks, who is the best defensive lineman you ever faced?
You know, there's a couple of guys that I faced that were really good. My rookie year, I should say, there's 2 guys that really stand out compared to a lot of different guys. One of them is John Randall. Gave me fits, drove me nuts on a day-to-day basis when I got a chance to play against him, and so it made me set the goal of where I wanted to get better. And then the other one's Howie Long. Howie Long was one of those guys that were unbelievable at what he could do. I mean, he was strong, he was quick, but what I noticed about both of these players is that they studied the game to a point to where they knew what you were doing before you did it. So, you know, they had already set you up. So they already, you know, watched your motions. They already did all their research. They had already studied the game enough to where they already had an idea of where the ball was going, so they could be 2 steps ahead of where you wanted to go. And I think that's what made them such great Hall of Fame players, is because of how they did their job. And so watching them play and playing against them sort of gave me the same premise of learning from them, of saying, well, I've got to learn more than they do so that I'm ahead of them so I can try to get to that next level also.
More questions for Will Shields from our students in the back.
My name is Derek Hurst from Minerva High School, and what was the most significant lesson you learned from your father?
Significant lesson, you know, for my dad is being consistent. He's one of those guys that he is what he is. He's consistent. That's one thing about it. Basically, get up early, get a lot of work in done, and also be prepared. And that's one thing that was really important to him. So like even today, he'll go on what we call recon stuff. So let's say he's got a doctor's appointment and he's never been there before. He'll go 2 days in advance, drive around to make sure he knows how far he's going, where he's going to go, and what's going to happen around there. So, it's one of those things we always give my dad a hard time about, of like, where are you at? And he's going, oh, well, I've got an appointment over here next week. So I'm driving to find out, to make sure I know where I'm going so that I'm prepared. And so that's one of those things that I sort of think he instilled in us, is that, be prepared for things that could happen or could come along, so that you're always ready for it. So when the right door opens, you're ready to step through it and do the things that need to be done to get, new things, new adventures started.
Thank you for that question. What's interesting, somebody asked you that last session. You told them about that, and I looked in the audience and I saw all the older people, like me, older people like smiling or shaking their head like, yeah, we understand where your dad's coming from. And then I looked at the faces of the and they're like, recon? What?
What does that mean?
Right.
Yeah.
But it's all about preparation. And how did that help you prepare at Nebraska with Kansas? I mean, you played 14 years in the NFL. 12 of the 14, he was a Pro Bowler. So that's why he's here in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So preparation obviously was a big factor in your career, wasn't it?
It is. It's one of those things of, what do you do during your off season? People ask, how long do you take, before you start getting ready for the next season? And when I told them 2 weeks, I took 2 weeks off. And then after that 2 weeks, I started prepping for the next year. And, you had to keep your body in shape. You had to keep your mind in shape. You had to start thinking. Now, of course, I didn't go out and do football drills after those 2 weeks, but I did start elongating the body, start getting, prepped for what you wanted to do next year. And then once I hit the J months, which, is basically that June, July, and August, once I hit the J months, I start dreaming football. Football plays, things I wanted to do, things I wanted to accomplish. I start dreaming that stuff. To the point that where, I'm sleeping at night, I'm blocking people in my sleep, things of that nature. And that's when you know that you're really into something and you're really preparing for something, when you start actually dreaming about the things that you want to do. And I think that's what's really important about it, is understanding where you want to go and where you want to be and what it's going to take to get there. And some of it's going to be cutting out some of the friendships you have, some of the things you do, some of the people you hang out with, to get to where you want to go, which is always that tough choice. But it's part of life, and sometimes you got to give up some of those things to get to the goals that you really want to set for yourself.
More questions, please, for Will Shields.
Hi, I'm Jack Weiss, and I'm from Green High School. And my question is, what do you remember most about growing up with your father stationed at Fort Sill?
What was what?
What do you remember most about growing up with your father stationed at Fort Sill?
What's really unique is, I don't know is there a military base near here? Well, the military base that I was on, basically it is artillery. So all the bombs the bombs and, the different big guns and everything else. So in the morning, they actually do the morning session. You hear them yelling and screaming while they're running. They're doing their PT. They're getting all that done. After that, when you're in school, you hear all of the ballistics, which is basically big weapons shooting and hitting the mountains, and it shakes your school. And so you're sitting here and it's shaking school. So when you had people from out of town that were visiting you, they would freak, what's going on? What is this? And I was like, oh, they're just shooting the big weapons out there on base. And when you're in school, it just shakes your school a little bit, and you got used to it. And so that's what it was like growing up near a military base or on a military base, is understanding that, those times are going to come here and there, and you have to be prepared for it. And my dad actually could fix anything that moved. And so anything, whether it was a tank or your car or anything else, that's what he would do. And so he would teach you all those little things of, so when I'm driving along, sometimes I'll, look over and tell somebody, yeah, he needs to add oil to his car, or he needs to do this, or he needs to tighten his fan belt, or he needs to do that, because my dad had keened our ear into listening and learning those little nuances of what makes your car tick and what makes things run. So that's what it was like being there, and it was really cool because, I had a really good family life, and I had really a solid support system from home.
You know, whether it was, you know, mom telling you what to do and not to do, and then dad, of course, keeping you, you know, in the right and narrow of what you needed to do. And I think that's what I enjoyed about it, but I enjoyed about the simple fact of being in a smaller town too, because we got a chance to ride our bikes anywhere we wanted to go, to work out, to play, and all of that. It was never, hey, let me get in the car and have to go do it. And that's what I loved about having that small town feel, because, you know, we knew everybody and knew where we were going and what we were trying to do.
Thank you for your question. Awesome. Got another social media question. We're getting some from Twitter. If you're tweeting at us, hashtag HOFvalues. This one from Facebook. You were named a captain for the upcoming East-West Shrine game. How important do you think it is to give back to the next generation about to enter the NFL?
You know, I think it's very important. I think it's very important to keep teaching the history of the game, to keep teaching those that came before you. And right now, with all the access that this generation has, you would think they should know more about the things that came before them. But what I'm finding out is that there's a lot of young guys that don't really study the game. They're good at the game, they're very talented, but do they know what started it, where it began, and all the little nuances that's been put in place to get you to this point? You know, and that's the really important pieces. And so I think that's what I think is really important for us, to be able to step in front of them and also get them prepared for the new job that they're going to take over, and understand that at that point, you are coming in to take somebody else's job, somebody else's livelihood. So it's a different mentality. It's not like you're just going in to be the next person. You're actually, when you get there, somebody else is replaced. And understand that. And so when you get there, somebody else is going to come right after you to replace you the next year. So you have to prepare your mind for that and understand that. And I think that's a hard time for us to do, you know, because then you get released or cut or what have you from a team, and you're going, well, why did this happen? And you're going, well, what did you do to make sure that you stayed on the team, compared to, hey, I'm going to take X more months off, I'm not going to do these, I'm not going to do that. The more things you make me say the word I'm not going to do, the less opportunity that you'll have to stay there longer.
Let's go with more questions from our students for Hall of Famer Will Shields.
My name is Jayla Crawford, and I go to Horizon Science Academy, Denison Middle School. Did you have any specific pregame rituals?
Now me, I had, I guess, one of the most unique pregame rituals. I would go out and warm up, and then I would come back in, and then I would actually lay in my locker and go to sleep. Sort of like some of the guys are doing now while they're sitting here. I would lay in my locker, though, and go to sleep. And then I tell the guy, hey, 5 minutes before we go out on the game, wake me up. And then I'd be ready to play. And so that's one thing that's sort of different, I guess, for most guys. Some guys need, you know, music to pump them up and get them going. And, you know, and this is what I've seen a lot of the kids now. If you're practicing, they play music during practice because they need that to keep them going and everything else. Where for me, I was the opposite. You know, I could play slow jams and go out and basically beat up on people, and I'd feel just fine.
Thank you for that question. Great question.
Thank you.
Let's get our next student with a question for Will Shields.
Hannah Mick, Minerva High School. What was one moment in your life when your character was tested?
You know, there's a lot of different moments when your characters are tested. And I guess, and I'll tell a different story than when I was here earlier, because I was just thinking about it. Playing in a game, we're playing against the Denver Broncos, and, you know, you get a little heated. You're, you know, pushing people down and hitting, you know, with your pads and everything else. One of their players actually spit in my face. And so that was one of those things that I even tell my kids is a no-no. You know, those are fighting words. You know, those are things that, you know, really push the limit of what you want to do. And so that tested my character to not retaliate at that point, but to be able to keep my cool enough to make myself, you know, understand that, you know, what is that going to help with the group or the team or what have you. So that was one time that really tested my character for me, you know, not going to the other end and, you know, causing more, you know, more issues and more things like that. Now, at that point, you know, you do take down his number and you hopefully you get a shot at him later, but fair while the game is going on, but not necessarily before or after the whistle.
Thank you for that question. More students with questions for Will Shields, and then we'll get some more of our social media questions in for him. Go ahead, young man.
My name is Kyler from Lehman. What is the biggest change you have seen in the game of football since you played?
The bigger changes. There's a lot of little changes that's happened, especially within offensive line play, how you can use your hands more and more prevalent of basically more positioning than actually having to thump as much. Of course, taking the head out of the game is really the big important one, so you can use your hands more. Also, the simple fact of being able to use your wide receivers and different things of that nature. There's not as much contact across the field as there used to be. It used to be, hey, you hit him across the field so that he slows down. Those things have been taken out of the game quite a bit. So those are a couple of different changes, and it's more making the game more prevalent for getting more points on the board and different things like that. I tell you right now, it'd be tough to be a defensive guy these days playing the game because there's so many limitations and so many things that you can't do on the defensive side that you used to be able to do, and then the same with the offensive. It's more built for protecting those guys and getting them down the field. So those are the little nuances, especially the hand play has become a bigger piece and a bigger prevalent of being able to use your hands in different ways.
Thank you for your question. A social media question for us. As a lifelong KC Chief, what is it like to see how successful the team has been this year under the leadership of head coach Andy Reid and record-setting play of Patrick Mahomes?
You know, it's really a lot of fun to watch. It's a lot of fun to watch this fast break football and be able to make it happen and get things done. What's really cool is that even, was it my 6th or 7th year in the league, I got a chance to go to Hawaii playing in the Pro Bowl and sat on a bus and got a chance to sit and talk to Andy Reid for about an hour on the bus. He didn't know me from Adam, you know, but he is a head coach that was over there coaching, and got a chance to just sit and talk to him and listen to what he's doing. And I've always enjoyed what he's done with every team. And that's what's really cool about him, is that he's sort of a mellow, laid-back guy, but he has a great style and tempo to get all the guys to do what they need to do. So to watch Patrick Mahomes throw the ball all over the place and make things happen is a lot of fun. Because it also makes the city fun, it makes it electric. You know, even though you're not on the field, you still feel pride in the part of it that your team is playing well, or the team that you live in is playing well at this point.
More questions from our students in the back for Will Shields.
I'm back. I'm Jack Weiss from Green High School, and my question is, what was it like to play with legendary quarterback Joe Montana?
So to start my rookie year, to have Joe Montana, Marcus Allen, and all of these guys, and Derek Thomas all on the same team was, you know, one of those things that you walk into a locker room and you just sort of in awe of what they do. But what's really cool is actually learning from them, being able to watch them do things on a day-to-day basis, even though I think Joe was in his 14th or 15th year at that point. But to watch how he come out and prepare for a game. So we're at practice one day, and he is sitting here, and we're putting in the new offense because we switched to their offense once he came to the Kansas City Chiefs, and this is my rookie year. He starts making all these calls, and we're trying to figure out what he's talking about, and they actually had to slow him down and say, look, they haven't put that into the playbook yet. This is stuff they still have to learn. So to be able to watch him already change and when he came in from day one and be able to help us transition was unbelievable. But some of the things he'd do in practice you would think would never happen in the game. And that same week he would come out and do it. So I sort of take it back to the Patrick Mahomes left-hand pass that everyone's talking about. Joe had something that he did in practice where he threw the ball straight up in the air before the guy released, and he ran under it and caught it. And then that same weekend did the same thing in the game. And it's one of those things that you would think would be only happen once, but he had already prepped it out to where he could actually see it before everybody else could see it. And, you know, that's when you know a guy has a bigger IQ football-wise than the rest of us, and he has timing and understanding. The game was so slow to him that he could see 5 or 6 different things. And so that was your goal in mind is, hey, can I become half as good as that, as being able to see little things that's going to happen? And so that was what made it cool, is to have those guys on your team because you could learn from each one of them. And so I was taking little pieces of information from each of them and how they studied and how they prepared and things they did and tried to add it to what I wanted to become when, you know, as I was starting to learn to play the game.
Thank you for that question. So rookie year, Montana, Allen, and Thomas.
Yes.
3 Hall of Famers, right?
Yes.
And now you're a Hall of Famer with them. In your wildest dreams in that rookie year, did you ever imagine that eventually you would all be on the same team again, the greatest team ever assembled here in the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
Not even close.
No?
At that point, it was like you're just struggling to survive. You're trying to figure out what to do next, what holds for you tomorrow. I don't think actually the Hall of Fame, even into my memory, even comes to mind until I had my third or fourth year. I had Art Shell as my offensive line coach. He's, of course, another guy called 10 letters, and that's what we used to call him, 10 letters, because he was in the Hall of Fame, And he was like, if you keep playing at this level, you might have a chance to get into the Hall of Fame. And at that point, it never crossed my mind. It was just, hey, I just want to make it to the next game, and I just want to play the next snap, and I just want to do the next thing. But he saw something at that point that said, hey, you might have a chance at one point to wear a gold jacket. And we used to argue about little things of like, hey, I want to use this technique, I want to do that, I want to do this. And he was like, well, you can make that decision when you get 10 letters behind your name. And so that was our running joke. So, of course, this year going in and sitting here and talking to him the other day, and I was like, so what do you think about it now that I got 10 letters after my name? Can I actually make that decision now? And he just laughed. He just smiled at me. So it's one of those things where you don't really think about the next stage as far as being a Hall of Famer or different things of that nature when you're playing the game. At least some of us can't think that way. We just think about how can I be the best tomorrow and the next day and the next day. Because when you get too far out ahead of yourself, you lose vision of becoming the best you can at that point.
Social media question coming in. What is your favorite part of coming back to Canton for Enshrinement Week, powered by Johnson Controls?
I think it's part of it is seeing everybody that is already here, but also they have a luncheon that we get a chance to sit here and listen to all the different guys that are bringing in the new class and watch how they interact and watch and learn from all the guys that's been here before you. And that, to me, is one of the coolest things, is basically sitting there in that room and just absorbing all the information and all the guys that have ever went before you, and guys you used to watch play, and guys you used to emulate when you played the game in the backyard. It's like, oh yeah, I used to try to catch the ball like Lynn Swan, even though I was a lineman, or I used to run the ball like this guy, and I used to do like that. And now you're actually sitting in a room with those guys. And to me, that's one of the coolest parts of the week, is being able to sit there with those guys and just listen to them talk about different things and what it means to be a Hall of Famer.
Let's get more of our students with questions for you, Will. You're up next, young man. Go ahead.
My name is Riley Bird, and I'm coming from Lehman Middle School. And my question is, if you could go back to your rookie year, what advice would you give yourself?
Rookie year. And I think for me, the advice I would give myself is, more or less of anything else, is basically learning how to eat right. Learning how to eat right at my rookie year. That would be something to me that would be very important, because I think the career I had and the different things that I did, is I'm looking at it, if I ate a little better, I could have been that 20-year guy, instead of just the 14 years, which is great. But it's just looking at little things, and I guess that would be one of the little things I would look at, is, being able to choose the right food and the right nutrition piece that I didn't take advantage of at that point. And to me, that would be one little piece. And then, of course, the other piece is, always learn more than you can actually think you can learn. You can never stop learning, and that's the one thing about it, is just make sure you take better notes, do a little more, all the little nuances of things, just to make yourself to be the best you can be.
Thanks for your question, young man. Here's one from Twitter at KB_2121. Asks, since you were enshrined into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, what has been the best part about having those 10 letters and that gold jacket?
I think I'm still sort of, even though it's 2015 I went in, you're still sort of shell-shocked of, that you actually have a gold jacket. But the cool thing about having the gold jacket is that it puts you in a unbelievable state of someone else can see your body of work and say that you're deserving of being considered one of the best. And not saying you are the best, but considered as one of the best, 100 or 315 guys that are in. And I think that's the essence part of it. You want to embrace it. You want to be a part of it. You want to be inside of the group and understand that it's a special fraternity. And I think each year it grows on you a little more and more.
Let's get more of our students with questions for you. We got about 10 minutes left. Let's get as many in as we can.
I'm Derek Hurst from Minerva High School. How do you support our country and its military today?
You know, there's a couple of different ways that you support it. Of course, we have our annual month that we celebrate, you know, our salute to greatness and things of that nature. There's a lot of different programs that we support throughout the year. But for me personally, I have a fitness facility, and we support our military on a day-to-day basis. We do programs that help those that come back from different places that need support. Also, we even do to a point of where we try to do special classes and special things like that, just to support our troops, because the simple fact of all the things that they have been through and all the things they give up for us to be able to be and do what we are. And so, you know, anytime you get a chance to, you know, tell them thank you and thank you for your service and different things of that nature, that's what you should do. And just because, you know, they've made a commitment to be our protectors, to be the people that will be on the front lines and do the things to help us keep the livelihood that we have today.
Thank you for your question. You've been out of the game how many years now, Will?
Ooh, what is it, 2018 now?
Yeah.
I retired in 2012.
12 years.
Yeah.
What's everyday life like for you now, and how did you prepare for it while you were still playing?
You know, basically, I do a lot of different things. I have a lot of different hats. So basically, I have a job with the NFL. I do the Legends program, help guys transition out. So once they get done playing or in the middle of playing, I actually help them get acclimated to think about new jobs, new things that they can do. You know, because the average is 3.5 to maybe 4 years that you actually play the game at the highest level. And so from that point forward, you have to plan what you're going to do with the rest of your life. Not everybody's going to make enough money for them to live off of. And plus, even if you did, what is your why from that point forward? What do you get the chance to do? How can you affect other people's life? I also have my own foundation, the Will to Succeed, so I actually work on it quite a bit. We work with battered and abused women and children. We've been doing it for almost 26 years. We have about 70 different programs we support in the Kansas City area. And then on top of that, I have a fitness facility. And so it's really a training complex. So I have 120,000 square foot of training, which is a pretty big building. We cover about 8 acres. So with that being said, you know, I have like 105 employees. So, you know, it keeps me pretty busy doing all those different things, as well as some of the training ourselves on the youth side, as far as our kids and everything else. So we just finished up our year with our 6th grade football team. And so I coach a 6th grade football team, even though my youngest is 21. But it's a lot of fun. It's an opportunity for me to give a chance to give back to the sport that I love and be a part of it. And so we do camps and clinics and things like that. So it keeps me really, really busy, you know, between that and then, you know, chasing my older kids around when they're doing things.
Another social media question coming in here from @NLM4. How was your recruitment to Nebraska different than your son who played basketball there?
Well, you know, it's a total flip side, you know, for being a football player compared to my era to his era. Of course, you know, being a football player and you're not as talented as being one of the top guys or top recruits, that makes a big difference. So you have limited choices. And my son was sort of the same way in basketball. He had limited choices in where he wanted to go and what he needed to do. The fortunate thing for me is that I went to a couple of different camps. So I got a chance to actually show him what I could do and be there in person, sort of like I got a chance to go out for my own job interview and go out and show them what I could do in person, and so I could see what they wanted to do, where he never had that opportunity. But I think it was more or less that out of the schools that he had the opportunity to go and visit, Nebraska was one of the bigger schools that gave him an opportunity, plus they had the degree that he needed, which makes a bigger difference too. So he got his degree in biology while he's playing basketball. And so in doing that, he had to go to a school that actually offered that degree, where for me it was the other spectrum. I needed the support of what they had to do as far as study hall and different things to help me get to where I wanted to be at that point. So he's got his mother's brains, so he could basically go anywhere and do well. And for me, I had to work at it a little harder. And so that's what made the difference between also the recruiting piece of it.
One of the things you said in our last session, and I've heard it from other Hall of Famers, is you used the term "in your toolbox."
Yes.
Explain to our students and people watching on social media, the adults here, because we hear that a lot with athletes from coaches. What is an athlete's toolbox?
Well, an athlete's toolbox is basically, let's say we got to get one job done. We got to get one job done. We got to get, let's say, this thing fixed or that thing's fixed. But you can't use one tool to do it because everything you do is a little different. Every nut, bolt, and everything else is different sizes and different metrics and different things. As an athlete, we have to figure out what is the best way to get my job done. So if I'm going to block somebody, I have to figure out, okay, can I attack him straight ahead and get it done? Or do I have to set an angle so that he can go this way and get it done? Or do I have to take different footwork? So we call it our toolbox. So we put 5 different ways to get the same job done. And the way we love it is that we just want the job done as a coach. And sometimes it's hard as coaches. We get stuck of, well, this is the technique I've seen used before, and this is the one I want, and this is the only one I think will work. Whereas if we teach multiple techniques, it gives you an opportunity to win regardless of what you're facing. So if I'm facing a bigger guy that's bigger than me and stronger than me, I have to attack him early because I can't let him get started. Or if he's a guy that sits and reads me, and if I go at a certain angle, I can make him move, then I can use his weight to win the same battle. So that's what we call our toolbox. So you're actually setting up different opportunities for you to win with different opportunities that you give that person to use. And it's sort of like if I only teach somebody in one way, then they're stuck. So what if I learn and I'm a visual learner? So somebody can visualize, somebody can tell me something and I can see it in my mind and it works. Or I actually have to see somebody else do it. And then the other one is I actually have to do it myself. So those are 3 different ways of doing it in the toolbox. And we have to figure out what works best for you, and it's not always going to be the same because all of us learn a little differently. And some people are combination where they can do all 3, some can do 2, and some of them go to a point of where I can only do it one way. But we still got to teach that way, which is different from when we grew up compared to now, where right now we use a program that actually has 10 different ways of teaching somebody the same skills. Imagine that. So you could take 10 different ways of teaching them the same skill. But the only way I can know that is by having them take their pre-test first, and then I can actually say, okay, this person can do it this way, this person can do it that way, this person can do it this way. If all the coaches in the room would say, if I could split this room up into 10 different sections and I know how to coach this section this way, it would be easier for them. And we've actually figured out a way to do that. Wow. And that's what we're trying to get to make it easy.
That's great. Let's get one more question in from a student before we have to bring this to an end.
My name is Rashad Jones from Lehman Middle School, and my question is, if you can give one piece of advice to someone my age, what would it be?
The advice I would give you is to make sure that you have looked at everything that could possibly be done. Look at different opportunities that you might be interested in, and sometimes look at something that you're not interested in, because you never know what you're good at. You never know that you might have a talent in something different if you've never tried it before. Be open to look at other things, because if you don't, you're limiting yourself to the one thing you think you might like without actually knowing how good you could be in something different. So I give the premise of when I went to high school or middle school, I was trying to figure out, I needed an elective class, and I was trying to figure out which elective should I take. So I ended up talking to my sister, and we used to actually sing at home all the time, and she goes, you should do vocal music. And I go, vocal music? I'm a football player, why would I do vocal? Well, you do it all the time. It's a lot of fun. It gives you a chance to try something different. So in 7th grade, I actually went out for the choir. Loved it so much, I did it from 7th grade till I graduated from college. At one point, I kept thinking I might actually pick it back up in college and try to do it from there, but football took over. but it's the simple fact of finding something different that you love. So vocal music, drama, all of that was something that I loved just as much as football, but it was something that I wouldn't have known if my sister wouldn't have said, hey, it's a great elective to try. It's a great chance for you to see something different and do something different. And until you open your mind up to all the different avenues, it's tough because you never know what you might be excellent at. And that's what we want to find out, what you're excellent at and what you might love. And you can't follow your friends all the time either, because the simple fact of it is, don't let them talk you out of something that might be great for you.
And on that, thank you for the question. We're going to bring this session to an end. How about a nice round of applause? Pro Football Hall of Famer Will Shields. We want to thank you all for coming out and joining us here today. For those of you heading back to school, safe travels. For those of you going to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, enjoy your day. Thanks again.
Thank you, guys.